the wait to actually ask Ohio State some questions will continue, but there are so many rattling around the brain of television's Adam King that we have to get them out on a Talkin' Tuesday on the Beat, brought to you by the Waterworks.
Holiday edition.
Welcome. This is the show where you never know what the background is going to be.
I love it. It's beautiful. We're just a week away from a beautiful Christmas, so
the snow was falling all weekend long.
We thought, why not bring you a special edition?
Yeah, it looks great. It's much better than the surface of Mars that we had a couple weeks ago. I'm enjoying it. It's the holiday season. Now, Ohio State about to get back to business with some practice this week, but don't think that we're going to hear from Ryan Day, at least as I understand it. Maybe you've got some information that I don't.
No.
We'll talk to the offense, I believe, next Monday, the defense next Tuesday, and then they've got a couple days for the holidays that they can celebrate before they head down to Texas. So there's going to be practices going on back in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, but we're just going to have to speculate and talk it out on a Tuesday about what work needs to be done.
So I'm sitting here, I'm staring at the ground, I'm getting worked up because I have had a very frustrating week.
Really?
With the award season.
Yeah, let it out, buddy.
Football.
Let it out.
It is so utterly obnoxious what we do with college football awards. In no other sport do you do this. And I don't know, Talking Tuesday, we can't talk to Ryan. I'll talk to every person in the world. My question to you is...
Listen up, America.
Listen up, America. My question to you is, why do we continue to pretend that the best players aren't the best players just so we can all be different? Just so we can all say, well, I voted for Lemon because I know sports better than you do. It's absurd. I mean, listen, Julian Sayin should not have won the Heisman Trophy. I don't think any of us, Fernando, that was well deserving. I'm a little shocked he finished fourth. I thought he was going to finish fourth, but in the grand scheme of where we're sitting there Saturday night against I almost said Wisconsin because Big Ten Championship, against Indiana, and we're like, well, if he wins the trophy.
Yep.
And then magically a loss, he loses to two guys that didn't play. But it's neither here nor there.
That's the way college football works.
It doesn't make any sense. Okay,
it's not supposed to.
So my question is, do you think these guys actually use this as motivation? We all saw Jeremiah's tweet.
Seems like Jeremiah will.
Yeah, we all saw the picture of Julian standing by himself, saying, "Where's Austin and Adam? Why aren't they?"
We were planning to be there, Julian. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And
Austin
Austin had to see the Nutcracker, so he couldn't go.
And it is because I did tell you that was probably what was going to happen. I didn't know if he was even going to get invited to New York City because I thought he was going to finish fourth. I've been doing this long enough that I understand the ludicrous nature of everything you're talking about. I'm really glad that you're on this Talking Tuesday complaining about the way college football votes for awards and hands them out, because normally that's my role and I get all worked up and I yell about it. In fact, I did on Friday on a Freaky Friday mailbag edition, and I said I didn't think that Jeremiah was going to win the Biletnikoff. And that's insane. That should never happen. It's happened to him twice now when he's been deserving of it. But until they stop having people vote for semifinalists in October or start turning in ballots before all the games are played, this is going to continue to happen.
But I don't see, and so that is what I keep seeing as the excuse. And I understand it is a valid one, but it's also just the concept of if you asked 100 college football coaches right now, you get to draft. And
what wide receiver do you want?
Yes, and everybody keeps saying, well, it's not about the prospect. I'm not saying an NFL team. I'm saying if you asked every college football coach in America to pick the best receiver they want on their team, they're all pointing at Jeremiah. So what are we doing?
Let me ask you this. Who did the Big Ten coaches think was the best wide receiver in the conference?
Well, that's different. It's because it's obviously Jeremiah's better in the conference, but when you look at a national scheme,
that's
11.
different.
All right, that's very different. You gotta add in the 2, carry the 1. It's different. I am just beyond annoyed. I'm to the point where I don't want to hand out awards. You can hand out the Heisman. I thought Fernando deserved the Heisman. Thought he deserved all the other awards he won. I'm fine with it. But then Caleb Downs, who's without a question the best defensive back, just because he doesn't have all the stats in the world, everyone's like, well, he shouldn't have won that award. And when I saw that, I was done. Yeah, Austin sometimes tells me, he's like, Adam, you got to get off Twitter. You gotta
tell you that.
You gotta take some time away from the Twitter. It's not the real world. When I saw that, my phone almost went through a wall. I was like, this is out of control. Our ability.
That would have helped you.
It would have. I wouldn't have had to see it anymore. But this continued, and I think the thing that like really deep down burns is that these people think that by not voting for them, they're smarter than you. And I hate that concept because just because you zig when everyone else zags does not make you correct. It might make you different, and you might have a valid point. And there is someone out there, and I would gladly sit down with a cup of coffee to hear their excuse on why Lemon is better than Jeremiah Smith. They're wrong, but I will gladly listen.
Yeah.
And so I just don't. Stop giving out awards. Stop it. Just let's be done. Let's give out the Heisman, and let's move on, because I've had enough.
So your question before your blood pressure started rising was, will Jeremiah use this as fuel? Will Caden McDonald use not winning the Outland as fuel? Yeah. Will Arvell Reese not winning the Buckeyes? Will he use that as fuel?
Would you just stop it? It's really...
I'm listing them
Would
all.
you just...
I mean, I'm actually... There's two things that
How does Arvell not win the Buckeyes? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, J-Rod... People, his stats are pretty, and that's the
Berm's got to handle the audio of this, and I feel bad. That's going to be all over the place.
That is the thing about these awards, Adam. That like, if you look at it, Ohio State, in my opinion, has broken the brains of college football pollsters, awards voters, analysts, because they are so good, and also they've decided that they are going to treat the regular season as an exhibition. So the counting stats, the raw numbers for Jeremiah are not maybe what people thought they were going to be. Julian Sayin had a great year by almost any statistical measure, but he didn't run it up in some games like Fernando Mendoza did. You look at every position. That includes defense, where in the last month of the season, what were we talking about? Well, Arvell's going to play 33 snaps against Purdue. He's going to play maybe 38 for the entire defense against UCLA. They were stringing together so many 3 and outs, they didn't even get to accrue tackles. So it does take a more discerning eye. These people that normally would be like, well, I'm going to be smarter than you. I'm going to vote for this guy who doesn't have the stats because I know how good he is. That should apply doubly to Ohio State. It won't. Ohio State is, I think, also held to a different standard than any other program in the country, if we're being honest. Because, as you said, if you lined up 100 coaches or 100 scouts or 100 general managers. No, there aren't 100 general managers, but all 32. Okay. And you said, would you like Jeremiah Smith or Makai Lemon? Would one of them say Makai Lemon? I would say probably not. If you did the same thing with Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sayin, maybe there'd be a more competitive argument. I bet Julian Sayin would win out. So that's the part where, and I've talked to players, I've talked to coaches, I've talked to SIDs about this throughout my entire career. You can't and you shouldn't get worked up about it because it's a stupid, broken system. However, with what you're talking about, if you're trying to get ready for December 31st and you find something else that maybe gets you a little bit sharper focus, or you want one more drive or one more rep in the weight room to get ready because you feel underappreciated, there are very few opportunities where Ohio State gets to be the underdog. And I think that they will try to exploit that.
I think it's really interesting that Jeremiah Smith feels disrespected, because I think that's a wild conundrum to be in for a different, like, the one thing that
imagine if he's playing Miami. He's feeling that way.
That's just craziness. I can't, in my actual mind, wrap around the idea that Jeremiah Smith is considered by the college football landscape not the best receiver in the country. And people may say to you in your Twitter mentions, if you have them, that it's not the award for the best receiver in the country. But then you may Google it, and it says that the Fred Biletnikoff Award goes to, you're not going to believe this, the best receiver in the country.
Not the guy with the best stats?
Not the guy with the best stats. Meanwhile, Jeremiah missed pretty much 2 games and almost had identical stats. Doesn't matter. Neither here nor there. It's done. Award season's over. We're moving on. All right. My question for Ryan Day, if we had...
Lie detector?
No, it's a real one.
Okay.
And, well, it might be a lie detector depending on what he's been doing. But my question is, what does this last week look like for you? I mean, we've seen him all over the country because of, there's recruiting, then there's also, award shows and different things like that. He's flying everywhere. But when it comes to the actual game prep of the Cotton Bowl...
Remember, I'm going to just, because you talked about being on social media, like last Monday, people were like, what? Ryan Day just jets off to Vegas?
Yeah, Ryan's in Vegas. He's hanging out.
And he was in Vegas.
No, he was, but he was like...
It was a Bigfoot video. Like, what is it? Is that really
him? He's there to get Chip Kelly. He's there to play craps.
It's there because of Urban Meyer going into the Hall of Fame and to speak at the NFF. Like, sorry to interrupt you. But
no, you're right.
That's why, real world and social media, they exist on 2 different planets. Just kind of like when we're on Mars or the moon.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays, everybody. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're right, because that was one of the things that we all saw the picture of Ryan. He was there for Urban Meyer and also to secretly slip Chip Kelly, $1 million check. That's what everyone believed.
Also, Chip Kelly's not coming back to us.
No, sadly. I mean, I enjoyed Chip Kelly. I just think just imagine a world sidebar where you have Chip Kelly running the offense, Matt Patricia running the defense, and then Ryan just with his feet kicked up in his office actually being a general manager, head coach.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine the last piece.
Yeah, that's right. Ryan would not have his feet kicked up in the office. But the rest, I also, and I think you mentioned this, another sidebar to the sidebar, I would love to see Brian Daboll just as a name. Like, I think that he is a passionate coach that I would...
Yeah, I don't know if it's a likely outcome. I think that he checks a lot of boxes, but that's
he checks my biggest.
Were you
one.
saying that was like, what does the last week for Ryan look like?
Then I got to the sidebars and the happy holidays.
In terms of prep or in terms of the future?
In terms of prep, because that's what I think we're all. This is and I like to think about how crazy college football is, because think about the history of Ohio State. There's never been a week like the last week, and never in the history, and there will never be another week like what this week is. They don't know their team. They have a weird amount of days to get ready for a game that isn't. And
they just lost.
And it's not that this game, like we've seen them play bowl games before where they've had a long layoff, but that was either the national championship or a game that you understood you were playing for a Rose Bowl trophy or something that was special, but it wasn't the ultimate goal. This one, you're trying to prepare for 3 games. You have 26-day layoff. You don't know your opponent. There's just so much unknown for Ohio State. So they've had to figure it out. There's some part that's been known now for a week. What did it look like for the players? What did it look like, aside from the awards and everything, actually inside the Woody? The guys that were there, how did it look with Brian Hartline? We know Hartline was down in South Florida for a lot of the week. I mean, I would love to just peel back the curtain and see like a map of where everybody went and how it went and like what went on in the Woody, what went on here. Because I think it's a very fascinating.
Hey, everybody, it's Berm. Jeremy Birmingham from the Austin and Berm Show on 97.1 The Fan. It's confession time. I finally stopped pretending I was fine and started Awaken 180 last Monday. I've watched Austin melt away. I've watched Brandon shrink in real time. I've seen Scotty Vegas and those guys all look like they're aging in reverse, while I've continued to hold on to 40 additional pounds from the COVID years like it's a media credential. Now, of course, spending 6 hours a day in the car multiple times a week doesn't help, but we all have excuses. The holidays, that's another excuse, but I'm dropping that and already cruising through week 1 with Awaken 180, feeling the difference. I just feel better, primarily in my joints, and anyone who has arthritis like me knows it's not a joke, especially as we get up there in age. The decreased inflammation I'm already feeling is awesome. There's power in waking up eager to start the day, and Awaken 180 is giving that to me. If you've been watching everyone else succeed, thinking, yeah, maybe someday, trust me, someday starts today. I weigh in next week and I bet I'll already have lost 10 pounds. Do yourselves a favor, do what we all did and choose the solution for weight loss online at awaken180weightloss.com.
Well, yeah, because you had Caleb Downs at the start of the week, going coast to coast for the awards circuit. At the end of the week, you had Julian Sain in New York City. Ryan Day had talked about wanting to get the starters, the 1,000 rep, 2,000 rep guys, the veteran presence a break. So they were not having like competitive full go practices last week. And I wonder how much of that, as you start to build even this week, is it going to be like a spring camp? Is it going to be like training camp? Is it like an off week? Is it good versus good? How much good versus good do you need this week if you're not going to play? But you also know that Texas A&M and Miami are at full go and fully operational right now because they're playing on Saturday. That's a real push-pull. That's the art of coaching. It's a great question. I'd love to see what the actual plan is this week and how that compares to a month ago or 2 months ago or April. Because are you going to practice every day? I don't know the answer to that.
Do you think, and this is maybe outlandish from a coaching perspective, but knowing that every 1 seed lost last year, or not 1 seed, I'm sorry, every team that got a bye lost last year, higher seed. Do you consider doing a scrimmage? Do you consider maybe not a full bore, like all in, like you would in fall camp?
Yeah.
Not a spring game, obviously, but let's get out there and let's play a game, because they don't do that during the season. They're never really going full on full offense versus defense.
75 snaps.
Yeah, exactly. So to do that, I wonder how much it would build up and almost get the blood pumping again If it was like maybe on the day that Texas A&M and Miami are playing, you go for a scrimmage and get obviously you don't want to get the guys hurt. You don't want any of that, but get the blood flowing, and you say, all right, guys, here's our turning point. Welcome to normal game week or normal prep week, because we're going to go find out who we're playing when we're done with the scrimmage, and we're going to get to it.
Yeah, I think that if it were me, and you and I are not coaches, and we're definitely not national championship winning coaches.
You don't know that. You don't know about my
I guess
history.
I don't know what you have done on PlayStation. So
that's right. Many national titles.
You are a decorated coach.
A lot of people don't know you can take Texas State and turn them into a championship program.
I stand corrected on that front.
Yeah.
So I guess I would just have to ask you then what you would do at that time. And if Ryan Day's answer is, I don't want to do that, like, why not? Is it just because of the risk of injury? I would understand that. Is it, too much time? You'd have to dial it and throttle it back down the following week, and you're changing gears too much throughout December. I truly don't know the answer, so I would love an explanation, because to me, if I'm just hypothetically spitballing a plan, like for Saturday, you get out there at 9:30 and you get 45, 50 plays of good-on-good action, and then you go watch Texas A&M and Miami together. That sounds like a nice little Saturday, and you're accomplishing multiple things at once. So, I wish that there was, and maybe there still will be. I think that the press conference schedule has been a little bit up in the air. Like, I asked Ryan Day about the structuring of practice in this month a week ago, but it wasn't like, hey, how much 100% competitive snaps do you guys need in the middle of the month to be ready for December 31st? Because, as you mentioned, part of it with the teams that had buys last year losing was because two teams didn't deserve to have off dates and then lost to teams that were already better than them. But, that is certainly not going to be a mystery to Ryan Day or Mickey Marotti or Quinn Temple that that's what happened to those teams a year ago. Why is that, and how can we work around it? I bet that they've done some investigating for how those teams structured, at least maybe the top two teams, when they came up short, how they managed it. Probably already know that for Oregon. Like, there's a fair amount of knowledge that goes back and forth as all those teams are monitoring each other. But, what's the reason to do it or not do it? I'd love to know the answer to that. It's a lie detector.
That's a lie detector. But you've got to have a lie detector to know how much they've leaned into the other programs. I don't think you're getting that answer.
It's tough to keep all that hidden, though. And like the staffers, it's a little different than like Dan Lanning and Ryan Day being like, hey, what'd you do? Because they also played each other in the Rose Bowl, so they definitely didn't do that.
And they might play each other again this year in a national championship.
Ooh, is that a prediction?
Might.
Oh.
They might.
I didn't know we were supposed to turn in our brackets yet.
I have not. That's just a little teaser right there. Little tease. My question also for maybe the entire team, maybe the weirdest thing, and I feel like we've just completely glazed over this, is that the Ohio State defense, even in their loss, had an unbelievably good performance.
Yeah.
And it's not often, actually I was trying to think back, where you can pinpoint, like, think about the losses over Ohio State's, tenure, or Ryan Day's tenure. The Oregon game, you could argue when they were in Eugene, was a lot on the defense, and the defense giving up the big play. But even then, the offense had its own struggles. They did put up, I think, 35 or so. With that, you do wonder what the possibility. We might get the different backdrop. Who knows? We might get Talking Tuesday behind us here.
Could be anything.
It could be anything. I wonder when, in looking at the Ohio State scheme, sorry, I got distracted because I think we might get a different background.
It's very exciting.
It's huge, massive for the listeners, especially the ones that are just listening exclusive.
Only.
Yes, audio.
What are these guys talking about?
Yeah. Anyway, it's always been a two-sided thing. It's always very much like, well, if the offense had done this, when they lost to Michigan in the Kyle McCord year, the offense struggled, the defense also gave up plays. Last year, the defense looked really good against Michigan, but then they gave up a couple plays that ultimately cost them that game. It felt like the defense did everything they possibly could against Fernando Mendoza. Even people that are upset about Jermaine Matthews, which is ridiculous. He had a couple bad plays. Also, the throws were ridiculous from Mendoza. Spot on, especially on that touchdown. Long story short,
it's like the Heisman Trophy winner is capable of making good plays.
long story short, I just don't understand what Ohio State is doing in the Woody right now, because with your defense, it's not often you come off a loss and you say, do that again. If you do that for 3 more games, we will win a national title. And you solely know that the problem is the offense. And that was a long way around. Yep. But like, it's weird to come out of a game, and how do you communicate that with a team? Like, you don't ever want to riff. Like, you don't ever want, like, well, if the offense had done their job, we'd be Big Ten champions. But
I think that was part of the conversation when you think back to the first week in December of 2024, when it's like, because the defense is looking like, how many more sensational plays, Caleb Downs interception, Jack Sawyer interception, do we have to make to win this game? Because Ohio State doesn't live in a world where it should be losing games by giving up 13 points. And now that's happened twice in a calendar year.
It's crazy.
I don't think I would be absolutely flabbergasted if that happened again. Like, there's no world where Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, Keenan Bailey, Tyler Bowen, Carlos Loughlin are going to go into this playoff and be like, well, there's just no solution, you know? I think that having this month to look at what happened and some of the things where they came up short, which are, by the way, things that we've talked about on Talking Tuesday, a lot of them all year, with the right guard position, which is now in flux because of injury, with red zone situations breaking down and 13 and 14 personnel. Like, that's not new conversation, but it can't be hidden from that. You can't hide from that fact anymore if you're the coaching staff. So you have to get it fixed. And the good news for them is that they have really good coaches and the best players in the country. So that combination probably is going to work.
I think, last question for this Talking Tuesday, because we got a lot of Talking Tuesdays before they play football.
Why? Let's play football right now.
Let's do it right now. The nice thing is the next Talking Tuesday, we'll have an actual team, that they're playing.
We will have questions that can be answered.
And we might have Santa Claus behind us.
I think that's Matt Patricia's first press conference since like August.
That's true.
Those will be good.
But you know where you could also have seen some Matt Patricia sound? The Notebook and 10 TV Plus, a couple one-on-ones.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Very sneaky.
Yeah, that's interesting right there. My question is for Ryan Day and maybe Brian Hartline, Keenan Bailey. Everybody talks about you have to fix the red zone. How? Like, I know that's an overarching question and it's simplified so much, but like, it can be great. You said like they've got 30 days to figure this out. They had 3 months to figure it out. So my question is, how do you tear it all down? Like, I have no doubt they'll figure it out, but I would love to see the process of what happens over the next, 20 days, how they address, because it feels like you almost have to throw out the red zone plan from the most of the year. And Ryan Day made a comment in the post-game presser about QB sneaks when he was asked, and he said, well, we've only failed on 2. And yes, that is correct, but they were the 2 most important QB sneaks of the year.
Yeah.
And so that's a very tough balance to be in. It's tough to understand that you got to the Big Ten championship. You won every game the way you wanted to win it. You were never really contested by any team. But there's an argument to be made that the red zone just needs to be kind of overhauled. And I think if you do that and you go back and look at the rest of the season and you put an asterisk on the red zone and say if they had scored touchdowns 70% of these, the numbers would be astronomical for Ohio State's offense. So it's not something that hasn't been there. And we've all talked about it, but now it could be the difference between you winning a national title and you coming home with just a Cotton Bowl and maybe, a Fiesta Bowl. So I want to know how do you have that conversation? How do you sit down and say, guys, this was our plan. We leaned into it all year long. It didn't work. Let's crumple up the piece of paper and throw it in the trash.
They had to do that at this time a year ago. And the asterisk that you mentioned, if they had turned those,
not talking about Michigan with the asterisk.
I know that's an entirely different thing. But just for this year, to bring it back full circle, if you convert those or if you throw it to Jeremiah 4 or 5 more times, like a Biletnikoff, maybe even a Heisman for him, that's a different matter entirely. So some of that is not about awards voters. Ohio State had opportunities where they could have actually boosted their individual numbers without having to change their pace of play, and it didn't work. If you're going to insist against Texas A&M or Miami on putting 4 tight ends out there and taking Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate off the field, I don't know. That's a scenario where you might lose again if you if your defense only gives up 13 points. So I think that has to be, when you're talking about crumpling it up and throwing it in the trash, that's probably something that is already in the wastebasket. But we'll see, because this month of preparation is now half over.
Let me just say this and get real close to the camera.
America.
If in February Matt Patricia doesn't win the Broyles,
he's coming for you, voters. Listen up, America. Don't get television's Adam King.
Don't overthink it. All right, sorry. Go ahead.
He's good. It's a Talking Tuesday. We're just worked up. We need press conferences. That's an outlet. We're just got all these thoughts running around.
He's without a doubt the best assistant in the country. Don't do it. Don't do it.
He's not kidding, all right? Don't mess around. Definitely not on a Talking Tuesday on the Beat, brought to you by Waterworks. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back with, I don't know what we're going to do on Wednesday, because it doesn't feel like a good time for stocks, but we'll figure that out as we continue to roll along here on this quieter week still for Ohio State, but with an eye on the Cotton Bowl and the college football playoff. There is always plenty to discuss with television's Adam King of 10 TV. And I am Austin Ward, and Byrne will be here tomorrow. We'll see you back on Wednesday on the Beat. See ya.